others. So we are recording. Welcome everybody. This is a combination today of an online session with our advanced reporting, the CJ 475 class, as well as an online class I'm teaching in multimedia and visual communication, as well as a couple folks from the Daily Lobo who also were interested in joining. So welcome. This could be like the pandemic issue version that we've got going. Today we have guest speaker Diana Cervantes. I'm super excited to see her again. She graduated from UNM 2 years ago, 2018 already, with a degree in fine arts and a minor in journalism, and was in a class much like you are at the moment. She's been working in photojournalism as an independent photojournalist since then. Some of her work has included a project she did for BuzzFeed a couple years ago on sort of the aftermath of a school shooting that happened in Aztec, New Mexico, if you've ever been up in the Four Corners area. And she also did this really cool story about wild horses near Placitas that you might have seen if you've driven on I-25, sort of off in the distance, those horses that are there. So she's going to tell you a little bit about that project, along with other work she's been doing, and share her tips on finding work, networking, having a good online presence, and things like that. Of course, she's focusing on photojournalism, but I know that her tips apply broadly to some of the various topics that you all are interested in going into. And before Diana introduces herself, just a quick reminder, we are recording this event for future classes. I want to let you know that we are recording it and posting it online. You have the opportunity to ask questions as we go along. You can either raise your hand, there's a little raise hand icon next to your name. You can also type messages in the chat box, either to everybody or just to me if you're having trouble with your audio or video or things like that. I think that's it for housekeeping things. So without further ado, welcome Diana, and thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you guys for having me. So first of all, happy birthday, Bella. I don't know, I just saw that on the comment section and I just wanted to say happy birthday. But no, thank you guys for having me. I hope that what I share today can actually just help you a little bit on your journey. I know that if Kate was one of the few teachers who did this back when I was still a student, but I feel like if we would have had more, I think I would have been more prepared. But I also want to preface by saying that everyone's journey in freelancing is going to look different. So just go with your gut. What I'm going to share right now is just basically what I went and did for myself, but there's no linear path. For myself, like Kate said, I graduated in 2018. And before I graduated, I had like applied to fellowships and internships and no one wanted me. So I was like, oh, great. So I don't know what I'm going to do after I graduate. So when I graduated, what I did literally the day after I graduated was send out a mass emails to all the editors in New Mexico, every newspaper you could think of. I emailed their photo editor and was like, look, I'm available for work. I'm available to travel. So if you need an extra freelancer, I'm ready to jump in. And so with that, I ended up getting some offers to freelance. If you're lucky enough, you can find, some of you might have that opportunity to find a staff job, and some of you won't, and that's totally okay. You can totally freelance and have a part-time job to supplement your personal projects, supplement your freelance work, which is what I'm doing. So like I said, it's not going to be linear. So that's what I ended up doing, was just freelancing for a while and doing a part-time job, which is doable. It's hard, but it's doable. So, sorry, I'm like looking at my notes. I want to make sure that I give you guys what you need. So for post-grad life, like I said, I was working part-time and doing freelance work for newspapers. And then I decided to look for my own projects. And this brings me to my first point. In order for you guys to find your own work and find your own stories that you want to either pitch to editors or work on long-term and then pitch, you have to just be connected to the community. So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking time to go to the county commission meetings in Sandoval County. And when I started going to the county commission meetings in Sandoval County, I ended up learning about free roaming horses. And so that's how I ended up pitching my first big project to a magazine called Bitterroot Magazine. Um, so just make sure you're connected. But before that, obviously, like when you reach out to editors, have your portfolios ready, have your resumes ready, have your business cards ready. And that'll really help you sell yourself and like show people that you have experience with what you're doing. So for first and foremost, when you email editors, just make sure you have that, and so that they know that you're available. Um, but yeah, so like I said, like the first thing is to stay connected to the community. Um, so yeah, like I said, I started working on this story. I pitched it to Bitterroot Magazine. I'm gonna do my share screen. I ended up doing the story, which ran in Bitterroot Magazine, and I ended up telling them. So how I came about the story, like I said, I went to the county commission meetings, and there I found people uh, who had been working with horses for a long time, and I asked them if it was okay if I tagged along. At first, they were a little bit weary because the county just had a lot of red tape, but I ended up building a relationship with these women, and they were like, "Yeah, come on board and follow our story." So I ended up following their journey for, gosh, I think I started following their story in February of 2019, and ended up reporting it until May of 2019. So it was a couple of months of staying with them and reporting this work. And you can read about it if you want. It's also available on my website. But this is what I ended up working on. And it was a very important project in my moment in my career, I will say, because it ended up teaching me a lot about myself. It ended up teaching me about how to work with sources. Um, it taught me how to be there for people, even through journalism, because the story was very important to get out there. But just being empathetic and knowing when to shoot and when to let them have private moments was a little bit difficult. But it's just a balance. This is a story, and it ended up running in June 2019. Um, but the thing is, in order for you to find stories that you're passionate about and that you want to work on, you really have to just, like I said, show up, be a part of the community, um, attend county commission meetings, attend city council meetings, because there's a lot of stories that need to be told, and they're there. And once you have sources who are willing to work with you and follow the story, then you can pitch it to editors, and they'll be more interested in you actually doing it, just because you have sources that are willing to let you share, give information and all that. I also want to say that some great ways for you to find information, or to be connected to the community, is the Nextdoor app. I'm pretty sure maybe Kate has shared that, but the Nextdoor app, Craigslist, even, like, there's some weird stories on there. I don't know if you guys have this, but in New York, there's this app called the Citizen app, and the Citizen app like just tells you where all like different crime is happening like actively. And so like if there's breaking news or like breaking spot news, you can use that app to like find and photograph those moments. Of course, be careful. A lot of the time when you're doing stories based off of the Citizen app, or if you're following like let's say a fire that's happening, like it's actually real time. So sometimes like the yellow tape hasn't been put up. So just make sure you're safe and that you're not just make sure you're keeping your distance. But yeah, the Citizen app is great. Um, like for instance, like even if you don't have, let's say you're in your community and you still you don't have enough sources or whatever, go out and photograph festivals. Go out and find like little stories like that, because you can always pitch those and then you can make them visually interesting. Um, and like when I came to New York, it was really like I'm still source building and networking. So what I would do in order for me to like keep building my portfolio was to go out and photograph like public events, which we were having what was that event? The climate strike. I went and photographed the climate strike, and then we had the impeachment eve in Times Square. So even though I didn't have any like press credentials, those are public events. So I would just go, have my freelance cards ready, go out and photograph, because I know that I'm building my portfolio. Other photographers are out on the field and they see that I'm working too. And so you get to meet a lot of other professional photogs, introduce yourself. And if you show your face enough, they'll start to recognize it, be like, oh, you were here last time. Like, what are you working on? So just making sure that you're keeping connected with the community. So have your business cards ready, go out and tell stories, and just jump into it. Like that's just, you just have to jump into it. The second thing I would like to say is when you're out giving, like, make sure your information like on your website and on your freelance cards are up to date. Just because when editors are trying to reach you, they have to have a way where they can automatically call you. They don't want to have to be looking around for your number. So like on your, let's say this is your portfolio. On your portfolio, just have a section that you automatically can see like your contact info and your cell phone number, because they're not going to want to have to look through all your stuff in order to find it. So just make sure that your communication, how that to reach you, is like right in their face, just simple and easy. Another important thing that I want to let you guys know about like websites is that I'm sure Kate is already telling you like how to build your portfolio and all of that, but I wanted to introduce you guys to Visera. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of it. Let me do my screen share again. But this is a cool platform because it's like geared exactly towards visual storytellers. So with Visera, you can build like a little portfolio, and you can also do a website with them. But the portfolio is for you guys to connect with editors. You get to message some of them if you want to, letting them know that you're available for hire. But the cool thing about Visera is that you can go onto their, if you have a profile, you go into briefs, and it'll show you like open calls. Like this editor is looking for, in Europe, is looking for portraits of shopkeepers in the UK and Europe, right? So if you're in the UK and you're like, oh, great, I can actually respond to this, give your story pitch, and you can link photos or whatever, and then submit it, and then they can see it. So that's a really cool thing with Visera. Not many platforms do that. So like that's what sets them apart, is that they're intentionally geared toward photographers and people who want to share stories like that. So it's a great platform. You can actually connect with editors. They have their own little profiles. You can message them. So it's pretty easy to use. The other thing I want to really tell you guys to do is to attend workshops and to attend portfolio reviews. That can be a little bit challenging because you have to pay for your own way sometimes, but there are other great communities like Women Photograph. I ended up attending one of their portfolio reviews, and let me show you who they are really quick. So, okay. So like I said, portfolio reviews and workshops are very important. Come here. What are they? Okay. So this is Women Photograph. And what they do is it's mostly geared toward women, because a lot of times in the journalism or photojournalism industry, it's been pretty much dominated by males, which, it's not a terrible thing, but, we need to be more inclusive and have more women out in the field. So they're geared more toward non-binary and women photographers. But every year they host a workshop that you can attend. And the only criteria is that you have to fill out this form. And once you fill out a form, they ask you if you're interested in participating. So I think I don't know, I went in 2018, and it's a 3 or 2 day workshop, and they bring in speakers from all over. And on the last day, you have a portfolio review. And so I ended up going to their portfolio review. I had to submit like an application, and then And then once I was chosen to attend, they give you like a stipend, so they basically pay for your flight, which is great because then you just have to cover your hotel and food and stuff like that. But with the plane flight, it just helps so much. So when I went to their workshop on the last day, I got the chance to meet some editors, which were you get paired up with editors depending on, you have a list and then you pick which editors you're most interested in, and they try to set you up with those editors. And so I picked mostly editors that I knew would do documentary work, because they also do, there's other editors that do fine art, but I wanted something more in terms of documentary and photojournalism. So I ended up being paired up with editors from the New York Times, the editor from BuzzFeed News, the Washington Post, and two fine art photographers. It was very intense. Sometimes when you go into these portfolio reviews, it's very daunting because first of all, chances are that you've been following the work of the people that you're being paired up with, and so it's kind of like, well, you get like a fangirl moment, but just make sure that you're confident. Just do your best to present your best work. Have your business cards ready, and so that opportunity afforded me that contact with the BuzzFeed editor. And I'll talk more about networking next, but those opportunities, you have to set yourself up for those opportunities in order for you to network. It's still possible to kind of do it through social media if you maintain a social media presence. But if you don't go out and put yourself in those positions, it's a lot harder to meet editors that you want to work with outside of your hometown. So that was very important. So which brings me to my next point. So networking and staying and maintaining an online presence is very important. So when after I had the portfolio review with New York Times and BuzzFeed, I ended up sending personal handwritten notes to all of the editors at their publications and mailed them out and said, "Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. I will implement the advice that you gave me." And then I kind of put the little bit of advice that they each personally gave me to add a personal touch. And then I sent them off. The negative side of that is you don't really know if they read it. Like with an email, they can respond to you really quick. But with the handwritten note, you don't really know if they got it or not. But, I think it still adds a personal touch. And will kind of set you apart a little bit. So I ended up doing that. And then from that opportunity, I got to work with Kate from BuzzFeed on this story on which Kate briefly talked about the Aztec, the aftermath of the Aztec shooting. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. Which just kind of chronicles the aftermath of what high school seniors have to deal with after a trauma like that. And so I had to follow Sierra during her time during a ride along in her hometown of Aztec, New Mexico, with the state patrol, I think it was, or the state police. I ended up having her ride along was at 6 a.m. in the morning. So and Aztec is 3 hours away. So I had to leave a little bit earlier. So every time you go on assignment, plan ahead, because I left my house around 2 in the morning to get there a little bit before 6, which was great because she had given me the wrong address. So I had to drive 30 minutes the other direction. So that's always a learning experience. But I got to work with Kate on this. And if I hadn't gone to that portfolio review, if I hadn't messaged her and thanked her for her time, she probably wouldn't have asked me to do this. And so going out and meeting with editors is important, because then you get to work on stories that you didn't know were out there, and you get to really learn more about the communities that you want to share with readers. You get to build really great connections with these individuals that let you into their life. And I still talk to Sierra. I still want to continue her story. I don't know if I can get grant money for that. I'm trying to see if I can pitch that and get some grant money so I can actually go out and share her story continuously, because she's planning on doing the police academy. And so I don't think her story is over, right? But it's about building these connections. And if you don't build these connections, then you won't know that you can have this opportunity to follow a story for a longer period of time. And so that was really important. And that really showed me a lot about the way to approach subjects, to be delicate in situations of trauma. Because sitting with her, I had to kind of like, let me know if it gets to be too much. Like you're revisiting really painful stuff, very painful locations. If you need me to stop at some point, to stop photographing, to take a moment to breathe, like let me know. But she was great. She was awesome. Her family's great. They had me over for dinner. It was like a whole thing. But that's important. And even now, like moving from Albuquerque, a place where I had established so much connection, and then having to move to New York and having to redo that is difficult. But the thing is that I had built these connections with these editors, right? Like from my portfolio review, I also reached out to an editor at the New York Times. I came to New York and I was like, hey, look, I just relocated from Albuquerque. We met at Woman Photograph. Thank you so much for your input. I hope that I hope that you can see the growth in my work. If you're willing to meet up with me, please let me know. And he was like, hey, I remember you. I still have the letter you sent me. It's sitting in my desk. Like, thank you so much. Do you want to meet up at the Times? And I was like, yes, I want to meet up at the Times. And so I went ahead and had like a meeting with him. It was completely informal. He was awesome. And he was like, would you be willing to freelance? And so he like sent me a contract. And I was like, I can't believe I just signed a contract with the New York Times. And that was great. And it was such a humbling experience. And I was like, I can't believe this. But to be like completely transparent, even when you get moments like that and great breaks like that, you have to remember that there is a whole database filled with freelancers for the New York Times. And so it's taken a time to like work with him on an assignment. But the thing is, when it comes to that, you have to do three things. First, follow up, thank them for their time, and keep following up. Yeah, I even sent him like a Happy New Year email. Follow them on social media. If they share something, like it, because now we go like, oh, they'll remember that you're there and that you're still working, still putting out work. Twitter is important for that. Tweet out anything that you're working on. Chances are some editors will see it. Follow editors that you think might be interested in your work or people that you admire, because you never know what can come of it. So follow them on social media, like their stuff. And the third thing is pitch to them. Sometimes you sit around waiting for assignments and you're like, oh, I wish they could call me. Like, why haven't they called me? But if you give like a give and take relationship, if you pitch to them, they're like, wow, this person's willing to go the extra mile. They're not just waiting for me to give them an assignment, which is not really the case. Usually, like you really have to be pitching your own stuff. And so I'm kind of working on building more information from the community. That way I can pitch stuff that's in line with the desk that I'm signed with. So it's important. It's important to network. It's important to follow up and keep those relationships. The next thing I want to talk about is, like I said, your online presence, your Instagram. A lot of editors nowadays use Instagram as like a quick look into your portfolio. So they're like, oh wow, like this person's working on this, or oh, that's a really cool sports shot. But they just like, you make it be you. So when they scroll, they see all your awesomeness. Be weary of posting personal stuff. It's okay if you do, but just keep in mind, like, do I want an editor to see this? Do I want them to see me sunbathing on the beach? Like, just be like, it's okay to post cute pictures of your dog or your cat, because everyone loves cats and dogs. But be very mindful of what you share, because it's a reflection on you. And so, like, if you're posting stories about you drinking at a bar every day, or like, that's just not, like, it's cool you're having fun, but don't post it on your work Instagram, because like it'll just reflect on you. Twitter, please, like, if I can give you one thing, and if you walk away with one thing, is just maintain your Twitter presence, because editors are constantly on Twitter. there's a lot of editors that have actually started following me just based on what I've shared on Twitter. If you have mentors, like Roberto Rosales is great at this. Like if you've been working on photo projects and he sees that you're hardworking, he'll like retweet you. And he has so many followers, right? So from him, he ended up retweeting a story that I worked on, and he was linked to the photo editor that I met with at the New York Times. So the New York Times editor saw my stuff and he also like retweeted it. So it's like, make sure that you maintain that presence, because you just never know who's gonna stumble upon it, and it can really help you. It really can. I don't know much about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is weird. I would say keep up with it. Just, make sure you have your key highlights, your resume, things you're working on that you like, that you're passionate about. It's kind of a tricky one. I really don't keep up much with it, but I think it's important. So just try to maintain all the important stuff like updated. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is photo communities. There's a lot of online photo communities that can be very helpful in your journey. That way you don't only feel like you have a support base, but they can also give out information that's very, very important. For instance, I'm part of this community. Let me see if I can change this again. It's called the Authority Collective. And basically it's also aimed mostly towards people of color, minorities, LGBTQ community, non-binary folks. And like I said, the reason for that is because there hasn't been that much diversity, unfortunately, in positions within photojournalism. And so this group put together this database of people who are available for hire, but who can also, but they also are invited to this thing called the Slack channel. And it's an app where they can share networking events. They share project that they're working on. They share everything from mental health. So if you're having issues, or if you want to talk to someone about a contract you just signed, if someone's asking you for pricing on images, like it's a great place to reach out and be like, hey guys, like someone reached out to me. I don't know if this is the proper pricing. What do you guys think? And it's filled with people who have so much experience in the industry. So they can tell you like, no, this person's ripping you off. Like you should probably be charging more for this. So it's great. And Authority Collective is just one of them. There's others who are geared towards everyone. And I think I've shared a comprehensive list of online photo communities with you guys. So don't feel like you have to write down all of this, because there's more. I've linked them all for you guys. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so you can just look at all of this, and you have to sign up. So you I don't remember, you go to their website, and I think you go under contact or something, and then you fill out a form, and they decide if you can go in or not. But that's just based on your experience. They just want to make sure that people who don't have that many opportunities get the chance to. So that's one resource. And because of them, like honestly, because of what they've put together, they've sent out information about like panels, and one time they sent out information about NPR having a gathering of editors, and so like I went and networked. It was all right. So I went out there and networked. Networking is not always fun, guys, but you have to go, just show your face, be kind, be interested in what people are sharing, share what you're working on, bring business cards, be confident, just jump into conversations. If you can, like go up to the editor, if you know who the editor is, introduce yourself, say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I found out about your meeting through the Authority Collective. I'm really excited to be here. And if you ever have a chance, I'd love to sit down and talk with you about photography opportunities. And they're pretty much very open to it. So just be brave and be confident in what you've done, and just with a little bit of luck, things will fall into place. So I have like 3 more things that I want to share with you guys really quick. I don't want to talk your ears off too much. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that it made that much sense. I'm just a little bit nervous, but grants are so important. I know that a lot of us believe that maybe only doing, newspaper work or publication work is the only way to actually continue image making. And I just want to tell you that that's not true. You have to, if you believe in something so much and are passionate about certain projects, don't just think that the only way to do that is through, like I said, publications. You can fund your own projects. So grants are so important. I've been trying to learn more about writing grants, and that's a skill set you should all look into because it really will help you so much. Like I put a list together for you guys too of all the grants you can apply to. Read up on how to write grants, YouTube how to write grants, ask your mentors how to write grants. Maybe some teachers who are more in the English department, if you can, to do a crash course or something. But it's so important. It's vital to continuing your work outside of the newspaper realm. For instance, there's the Alexia Foundation. They are awesome. There's like a student level and a professional level that you can apply to them. And they have deadlines, and unfortunately some grants you do have to pay like a fee, but there's free ones too. But or the International Women's Media Foundation too also has a lot of great grant opportunities. National Geographic does them too. But yeah, they have student grants and they have professional grants. And what they do, I don't know if this one's like $10,000. I don't remember. But they give you a certain amount of money, and you just have to tell them like what your project is, your proposal, how you're going to use the money. You have to submit some photographs, either that are in progress of the work you're planning to do or of previous work, so they can gauge your skill level. But man, there's some great stuff that has come of it, and it's just people who are passionate about telling stories that not many people know about. And they accept applications from all over the world. But if you really want to fund your own project, if you want to work on something long term, but you don't have the money to, hold a job and do a long form story at the same time, this will help you pay your bills while you continue to tell stories every day. Because sometimes if you're following a story for a long period of time, you can't really hold a job. That's what happened with my horse story. I was following it for so long that I couldn't have, I had to drop things at a moment's notice if they were gonna like unload horses or drop off horses to their new homes, and that would be like hours away. So I had to like make sure that I had money to support that. And sometimes if you have partners or family who are very supportive of that, you can definitely save a chunk of money and still be able to go out and tell your own stories. And sometimes I want to say like, you're going to be rejected a lot, and it's just a part of life. But apply, because you never know what can happen out of it. For instance, I had applied for a grant back in December, and I was so devastated because I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, seriously, like I worked so hard on this, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it wasn't a lot of money. It was $5,000. Usually some bigger grants are like worth for like $10,000, $20,000. This is my first one, and I was like, I really want this one because with this grant, you don't really have to show in progress work. You can use it on anything that you may need. You can use it to pay your bills. You can use it to buy new camera gear. They're just like, hey, tell us why you want it, what you're working on. Here's the money. And I was like, oh my God, but I didn't get it, and I was so sad. And from that, and usually with this grant is really special because if you get the money, they'll give it to you on Christmas Day as a gift to you. And they're like, hey, look, you got this for Christmas. And it was just really sad. It was double sad because it was my birthday and I got rejected. But what ended up happening was that the founder of that grant saw my work. I didn't get chosen for it, but she told one of her colleagues who does an additional gift of $500 to the honorable mentions. And so he emailed me and was like, hey, so-and-so mentioned your work. I sat with it and I think you're doing a great job. I'd like to gift you $500. And I was like, oh my God, yes, this is awesome. Woo. Celebrate your victories, because they're few in between sometimes. And I was like, yeah, I got $500. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like, then a couple months later, from the same situation, um, this photographer from Reuters reached out to me, and I was like, on Twitter, guys, this is why it's important to keep up with all your social media presence. He reached out to me on Twitter and was like, hey, so and so told me about your work. I really enjoyed sitting with it. I think my editor at Reuters would love to see it. Would you be okay if I showed it to her? And I was like, yeah, yeah, share whatever you want. Like, thank you so much. Like, please do. And so then she contacted me and was like, hey, are you interested in freelancing for Reuters? And I was like, hell yes, I'm interested in, you know, freelancing for Reuters. But guys, like these things just freaking apply to everything. Even if it seems like you're like, what's the point? Like, I'm not gonna get it. You don't know what can happen. Like, stuff happens, but make sure you maintain your online presence. Make sure you send out thank you notes. Make sure they continue to see you out wherever you are in your community. Because I feel like she saw me covering, I think it was like the climate strike, and then that's what she told this photographer, that I had a good work ethic. So it's like, show people that you're willing to do the work. Um, but like it's hard, but stay positive, because there's always a way to tell your stories if you're passionate enough. There's days that are going to be hard. There's days that you're like, why am I even doing this? Like, you want to pull your hair out. But if you can, open a journal, write down a note, and say, this is my why. And when it gets hard, you open up that page and you're like, this is why I do it. This is why I keep going. This is why I work that part-time job. And so it's hard, but if you want it enough, you can do it. It's just baby steps, baby steps. And it doesn't matter what publication it's for. What matters is that you keep telling stories that matter to you. And then hopefully the people who you're telling stories about get to be seen by the rest of the world, because their stories matter. And that's your job, is just to share other people with other people, your journeys with other people. And I think the last thing I want to end with is submit your stuff. Just submit your stuff to open calls. The fence is a great opportunity right now, because of what's going on with this virus and all of that. They're doing pay as you want. Usually their entry fees are like $30. So right now, if you want to pay $2 an entry, you can do that. So I think they've extended their deadline until May 15th. And that's also, I've also linked that in this document that I've sent over to Kate. But you can just go on there, submit your work, and if it gets chosen, it gets to travel around an exhibition. And the major one is here in New York City. So just apply, send your stuff, whatever you think is, whatever you've been working on that you're very proud of, just share that. I know that Aperture has open calls. That's more fine arts, but they still have, you can still submit your documentary work. Nat Geo Your Shot used to have this really cool platform where you can submit. They had like open calls, and you could just submit like work. Editors would comment on it, and then if you were published, they would let you know, which was really cool. I was published twice, I think, which was really cool. But then they took down that platform. But now they have it all on Instagram. So if you hashtag like anything great that you've shot, just hashtag Nat Geo Your Shot, and they're likely to see it. And if they like it enough, they'll share it. You never know. Never know. But yeah, I'm also very happy to look at anybody's portfolio. I'm happy to, if you have any questions, you can contact me. My info is on the document that I sent. I didn't even touch on half of it. Like, the other half is taxes, invoices, reading contracts, keeping up with your business expenses. Like, that's a whole different thing. But thank you guys. I hope I wasn't too jumbled. I really appreciate talking to you guys. And like I said, any questions you have, like, my email is always open. So especially now, I have a lot of free time. So email me. I'm happy to look at stuff.
Okay, thank you so much. That wasn't jumbled at all. That was amazing.
Oh,
a lot of great resources in there for everybody. Let's go to questions from people.
Are you drinking my coffee? My dog was drinking my coffee.
Oh man, well, we know what he'll be doing later on.
I know, buddy. Come here.
Looks like Michaela has a question for you.
Hi.
Hi, Michaela.
So I was wondering, a lot of the people that are graduating in May, we're kind of going into an industry that's really uncertain right now. Like a lot of newspapers are like laying off people and doing hiring freezes. So I was wondering how you're navigating it, to kind of give us tips on how we should navigate it whenever we graduate.
Yeah, you guys are in a very tricky situation. I'm very sorry that you guys have to go through this in your senior year. Like, that's so unfortunate. I think what you need to keep doing is, like I said, have your portfolios ready. It's not gonna be like this forever. Um, and like I said, reach out to any publication that you think you want to work with, that you hope to work with. Small town newspapers, guys, that's where it's at. Like, I know you don't get paid well. You probably will have to have a second job to like supplement that. But guys, they're always looking for people to go shoot. And honestly, the bulk of my portfolio was from working freelance in small town newspapers. So reach out to those people. Like I said, maintain your online presence, keep shooting, keep working on your projects, because chances are, like, if you put something in front of an editor that's your heart and that is well put together, chances are they're gonna want to work with you. So just keep going, keep working on what you love, and it's gonna be tough. But email editors, email them, email them, email them. It's not gonna be like this forever, and just work on your projects.
I have a question. Don't know how to raise my hand.
It's okay.
Okay, so sorry. So I know like you spent a lot of time in Albuquerque and then you moved to New York City. What's the biggest difference between like a small city like Albuquerque and then working somewhere?
That's a good question. The biggest thing I have to say is being out on the field is a lot harder. You have 50 photographers or up to 60 sometimes covering the same things you're covering. So pushing your way through to try and get the shot, or trying to distance yourself and finding things that are different from what they're shooting, because you have all these photographers from different industries and you're all trying to get the same shot is very hard. So I think that's one of the major things. Even festivals here, I loved going out in New Mexico and shooting festivals. Here it's a little bit more complicated. Even though I'm media, just because I haven't worked that many red tape events, I'm not allowed to be in the like within the festival with the festival people. I have to be behind the rails, and that's hard. Like, I have to wait a little while before I can get even credentials just to be in the parade itself to take better pictures. So, like I said, you have opportunities in New Mexico that you aren't necessarily going to have anywhere else. You get to be, people are more open to inviting you into their stories. You have more room to tell stories figuratively and literally. So take advantage of that. And things look very different out there. The stories out there are very different from the stories here. And so use that to your advantage, I would say.
I have a question. So, as a photojournalist in New York, how has your reporting changed due to social distancing and the coronavirus? And then on top of that, how do you like get information from people who might not necessarily be too excited about you taking their picture?
Oh my God, yes. I get cussed out a lot. Okay, so the first question, I'm not really out on the ground. The reason I'm not out on the ground covering a lot of the coronavirus issues is because, first of all, I'm a freelancer. I had talked with Reuters about, when I had my meeting with Reuters, they were like, we're sorry, we're not having you out there right now. We just really need people that we worked with for a while, and the protection that we, like, they worked in situations where, kind of like that, where it was very dangerous and tricky. And so they're like, we just want to make sure that you're staying safe. So personally, I'm not out there covering it. Also, I don't think I have it, but I would really hate to put people's lives in danger, just for the sake of my portfolio. That sounds, I don't know if that sounds kind of weird. But the reason is because I really can't guarantee that it'll be published. So if I had a guarantee that I could publish the images, then for sure I'd be out there. But because it's such a huge risk, and I can't guarantee them that it's going to be published, I don't want to put them in that position. What was your second part? I'm so sorry. Like,
So how do you how do you like get people more comfortable with you taking their pictures? Like not in a coronavirus setting, but like so like I've went out and tried taking pictures, and oftentimes people will not really be excited about you taking pictures
Yeah.
of them. So how do you get around
Yeah.
that?
Oh, that's a hard one. Street photographers here don't give a shit. Sorry for my language. They just don't care, and so they put cameras in people's faces, and they have that like confidence. I work differently. I'm a documentary photojournalist photographer. I tend to care more about like if I'm putting people in a weird position. If I see something and I take a picture, I won't tell them that I took it. But then I approach them and I ask them, hey, look, I took this photo of you. I think it's great because blah, blah, blah. Can I get your name? And usually they're like, oh yeah, my name is blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh wait, who is this for? And then I kind of like let them know, look, I'm a freelance photojournalist. Here's my card, so they know that I'm not some psycho. And they can actually go on my website and see that I have a portfolio, a CV, and that I'm professional. I'm not just some freak. So that I'm not just some weirdo trying to use their photo. But it's different. I mean, New York, it's different. Some people are used to it. I've gotten weird looks. I haven't really gotten. Well, some people yelled at me, but I mean, you kind of just have to take that risk sometimes. But ask them too at the end, like, look, is this cool? And sometimes if they don't, then I'm like, is it really worth publishing it? Like, but I think that's just up to the individual, you know.
That was a great question, Daniel. Looks like we have a question from Abby in the chat. She asked, how many hours a day are you spending on social media to find stories and share your work?
I'm the worst. I'm so bad. I'm not spending, let's say, I don't really block out a time where I sit down and look for stories. I think what I'm doing mostly is like I have ideas in my head that I want to work on, and then I kind of like, okay, where can I start from there? So let's say, like for instance, I'm trying to work on a story about rooftop pigeon keepers, and so I'm like, where the hell am I gonna like? I know they're there, I just don't know how to access them. And so what I did was I like went on Facebook and looked for all these bird groups and like asked them for information. And so some of the guys were like, hey, look into this, there might be people there. So I don't think that really answered your question, but I'm not really spending too much time on social media, not right now, just because it's really depressing. I'm not trying to be like downplaying the news or anything like that, but I think I was overloaded with a lot of information, especially in New York. I would go in the subway and we'd be reminded to wash our hands every 20 seconds, and like NYPD cars blasting COVID information. Like I'm like, I kind of need a little bit of space, but yeah, it's a great time to look for stories online.
Okay, looks like Jamisha has a question as well for you.
I was wondering how, when you're carrying around a camera, how like it can make some people nervous and like act differently more than they're normally like moving or talking. How would you combat that or like make them more at ease?
I think it's just the way you approach people. Yes, your camera can be very daunting to some individuals, but I think it's about being aware, first of all. What communities are you in? Are you in a community of color? How would they respond to that? Are they feeling like you're kind of just, in a quote unquote using them or something like that? Like, just be very aware of where you are, and just make sure that you do know that sometimes you are a privileged individual coming into these circumstances. And so it's very important for you to be courteous. It's a free, like, you have that freedom to take photos, right? But do it in a way that you're not kind of othering people, if that makes sense. Just take a
Yeah.
picture, go up to them, hey, look, I took this image. Would you be okay if I put it on my website? Here's my card. What's your name? How long have you lived here? The more you talk to them, the more you build conversation, the more they're willing to let you photograph. And like I said, it's just being aware about the community that you're in.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, that sense of community is so important, right? No matter if you're doing photojournalism or doing written stuff or video, things like that. So I think that's a great point and good question. Looks like Destiny has a question asking, what do deadlines look like in freelance world? Is it just like working at a publication?
Oh, it's so different depending on who you work with. Like I said, but Bitterroot like gave me until to follow the story until its end, pretty much. So I worked on it from like 4 or 5 months. So that was great because I had more time to work on it. If you're working at a daily, obviously um, you're shooting and you're uploading it really quick. I haven't really worked for dailies that much, except when the daily logo was still a daily. The Santa Fe New Mexican is delivered on the same day, so I would go and shoot something and then rush back to my car or rush back to like a cafe or something and just like bust out the photos. So it's basically depending on the publication. If it's daily, it's like this. The second you're done, the second it's when you go and file. So you have to kind of have a good workflow, know what your settings are on your bridge and your Photoshop, so you can quickly boom, just get it out. I think, and then other than that, I worked at weeklies, so it just depends really. Reuters the same day, deliver same day. New York Times is deliver the same day. But they'll let you know. Sometimes if you're working on something that takes a little bit longer, they'll be like maybe 2 days, but usually it's pretty fast if it's a daily.
All right, thank you. Sevilla has a question next.
Yeah, hi. So coming from a fine arts background, do you ever struggle with kind of having to check your more creative tendencies and having to align them more with journalistic practices? Yeah, how do you kind of square those two different areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. But to be honest with you, like I have a fine arts background. I don't have a fine arts photography background, so I'm not really like super more nuanced in my work. But having said that, like a lot of publications now are using that to their advantage. So if you like, if for instance, if you go on, I think if you go to Burn magazine, which I've put on the document, they tend to merge both of them together. So yes, there are publications where you kind of have to just put it aside and like really work on just doing pure documentarian. But there's other publications that began to merge them. Like the New Yorker is a great example. The New York Times does it sometimes. So it's mixed. Like yes, when you're out doing something that requires more documentary, like you kind of have to try and like put that aside. But it's very interesting what photojournalism is doing now. It's beginning to merge more, not to downplay the rules of documentary photography, but they're trying to merge storytelling with both documentarian principles and more artistic principles. So I think the September Dawn Bottoms, if you look her up, she kind of does that in a way. She's great. She's amazing. But yeah, you can get a sense of how they do it. Like they'll put some more artistic twist to it, but it's still documentarian. I know it's weird, but it exists. It exists.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Bryce, you're up.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I've seen you before.
Well, hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, I've seen you shoot out there.
Well, nice to see you. Nice to see you. But my question is in regards to how this industry is going in journalism. For me, obviously, I do reporting, and I've seen you out there too. But when I go out on assignment, my editor makes me shoot my photos and do my own reporting. So how do you distinguish yourself from people like my editor who would rather have reporters go out there with their DSLR and take photos rather than hiring someone to do freelance work for another reporter, because it saves money and time basically, and another person just to have someone else do the photos?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect sometimes. In a sense, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades, and it's hard because, I mean, I've had the privilege of working with editors who truly put, who really value photographers and value what photographers can bring to their publications. Unfortunately, just because a lot of, cutbacks on staff, a lot of reporters are forced to do their own photography. I see it going both ways, honestly, depending on who you work with. If you're in a small town, chances are that you're going to have to wear both hats, and you're going to have to duke it out to actually be the photographer instead of letting someone else cover it. But in general, I don't know. I've had to do that myself, where I've had to report my own stories and shoot them as well. And it's so hard. It's very difficult to be able to give 100% when you're trying to talk to a source and knowing that something's happening over there that you want to shoot, that you think is important. Maybe like if you have an editor that's like that, maybe advocate more for what you can do visually. Be like, look, visual. People tend to actually look at images before they read an article. And that's just the way it is. We're visual people. And so maybe, because I'm sure you're very talented. And so just, advocate for what photography can do and help, like letting them know that you can contribute more in terms of, visually instead of writing. But I know what you mean. Like I've been in that position where I've had to write articles and I'm like, dude, I want to just take, like, I can't do both. And so it's very difficult, but I think it's conversations that we have to have with editors, and hopefully it won't be like that for a long time. But the industry, I mean, cutbacks are unfortunate. So
Thank you.
problem.
These are great questions, everybody. Really enjoying the conversation here. There's a question from Bella. What are some tips for crafting pitches for specific publications that you've never worked with, but you really want to write for?
That's a good one, because I feel like it's always hard to, I mean, in my opinion, like personally, I don't want to force my work into a certain mold just so it can fit a certain publication, right? So it's very hard. I think it depends, like, let's say you really want, like for me, for instance, this birding story, like, oh my God, I really want to do this rooftop pigeon keepers. I know for a fact that the Audubon Society, they have a magazine, and I know that they'd be interested in taking it. Why? Because they write about birds. But also saying that, don't be afraid to pitch anyone. Like if you really want to get it in, I don't know, let's say the New Yorker or whatever, pitch it. You just never know. Like sometimes, yes, you want to understand like what the publication is geared towards, their theme, but honestly, like I think at this point, just go for anything. Like just pitch, and if they take it, great. If not, then find something that will really fit what you're trying to pitch. Yeah.
Okay, great. Another question is from Nico. He says, working as a freelance writer or photographer, having your own business card is huge. For those of us graduating now, should we make our own business card to give to employers at interviews, or should we put all of that on the application and cover letter?
So let me read it. Like, sorry, I'm like trying to. Yes, 100%. Just have them. It's different too. It just adds a personal touch. So let's say you give them your resume. You give them your resume. You're like, and you pull out your card. You're like, oh, here's my card. It's just a little bit more professional. And then when you're out, like you're gonna be out there covering stories, right? You're gonna be out photographing events in the community. Having those business cards is gonna help you so much because it gives you credibility and it points them to a credible source, which is your website. And that website has hopefully, publications that you've worked for that can vouch for your work and that show that you are a professional. And so I think it's important. It's huge. I know it's expensive, and trust me, it's just an investment. You have to think of it as an investment in your work, which is hard. But I think Mood does a discount for, I don't know if they do a discount for students, but for your first time, they give you a discount for printing a certain amount of cards.
And I'll just throw in that places like Staples do business cards for pretty cheap. You sort of like submit it online and you pick it up when places like that are open. But don't think that you need the fanciest business card. What do you think, Diana?
Yeah, that's true. As long as you have the basic, make sure it looks nice. Of course, even with the simple, your name, freelance visual journalist, your number and your email, you're fine.
And your Twitter handle.
You're good. And your Twitter handle, of course. Right. Yeah. And your email. So
for sure.
Just the basic important stuff, and you're good.
Yeah. Another question here from Abby. When you're pitching as a freelance reporter, is it often in person, over the phone, or by email?
I think most of the time, yeah, most of the time it's, for me, it was over the phone and by email. Primarily for me, email. But when I was working with Bitterroot, because they were based, I think it was based in Oregon or something, and she and their managing editor was based in a different state. I had to be on the phone with them. So, but most of the time it's by email actually, unless you can meet them in person, which is great. But usually it's by email. Usually the pitches you submit are by email.
And on that note, do you have a secret sauce for us for writing a really good email pitch?
Oh my gosh, I'm the worst. I'm learning just as much as you guys. I'm not trying to be up here and be like, I'm a professional, I'm awesome. I really am learning as I go too. Basically, just in your subject, like a lot of people say put pitch in the subject line. Some people say don't. So it's very confusing. And so maybe like finding resources that can help in terms of what would be the best way to write a subject line. Like I Google that all the time. Like it sounds kind of like weird, but I do. I'm like, okay, well, what's the best way to catch someone's attention? For instance, when I wrote the email to the New York Times editor to like meet up, I put in the header, I think I put following up from Women Photograph Review or something like that, or referral from, also a colleague had referred me to him too, so I also put referral from Daniel Scruggs or something like that. And so he saw it and he read it. So try to be creative. Number one, try to be creative with your headline, with your subject lines. If you write them kind of PR-ish, chances are they're going to go in the junk mail because I'm like, oh, it's some PR person emailing me. So kind of make it make it sound like it's not junk mail, first of all. But yeah, that's a difficult thing, but subject lines are probably like the biggest thing.
All right, any other questions out there? Well, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to put a document in Learn that Diana has created for us with a lot of the resources she has mentioned, as well as her contact info if you want to follow up with her. I also encourage you to tweet out what you've learned so we can take this knowledge and spread it even farther on social media. But let's take an opportunity to clap virtually for Diana for spending her time with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. Even like I said, I'm happy to look at anything you guys want to share. Like, just email me, cool. Don't worry about the subject line. With me anyway.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you soon. And Diana, thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.